And I think that's true of churches. One of the things that we've said, is if we all of a sudden had a Pentecost movement where 2,000 people, get saved and join the church, well, then half of the people who are already here are going to leave because, now the church is too big.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think there's that inherent skepticism of things that are large like that. And so as we grow wider, that can't just be shoving people into one room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we say not just wider in size, we want to see our church grow in size, but the idea has been wider in our impact.
Yeah.
Because we want to see lostness impacted.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we take a deeper dive into Sunday's message and explore any questions you might have. I'm your host, AJ Stevens, joined by lead pastor Chip Parker, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of the Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops.
We are back, baby. All right, Paulus, do you mean we are back as in you are back this week and it's me and you here on Let's Talk About That for episode 49?
49.
Or
Close.
Are we back as in the U of F, baby?
Dude, I think we're back. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, baby. We gotta be back. First of all, a smart plan, right? All along. We're not going to bring it back against Texas. Probably a game we're going to lose. Make sure he's ready for LSU at home. It's a game you want to win against a rival. And it's a game you have a better chance of winning because they're looking a little shaky all year, and you get them at home.
I despise LSU.
To hate them. I know you hate them more than...
They're my top
yeah.
hated team in college football.
Tell me why, because there's a story behind this.
There is a story behind this. So I was like late high school, early college. I can't remember, honestly. It was the year that Chris Leak was the quarterback at UF, but Tebow was not there yet, doing the special packages or whatever. And we were playing them in the swamp.
I remember that year vividly because my dad yelled at the TV a lot that year.
That's right. We were in the swamp. LSU was coming to town. We were, pretty heavy favorites, if I remember correctly, supposed to win the game. LSU upset us. And as UF fans are leaving, LSU fans have like a human chain passing all of the half-drank beers and sodas up to the top of the stadium, and other LSU fans were pouring them out on Gator fans as they were leaving. And from that point forward, LSU has had the highest level of loathing that I can give for college football.
Then we get to say "Go Gators," however they would say that in their Cajun accent this week, and that's a good.
You know what?
That's a good thing.
It doesn't really matter how they would say it because they're not going to say it. All they're going to say is, "We suck again."
I said Gators, not Gators.
That's what I said. They said, "We suck again." Who remember like the Water Boy?
We suck again.
Yeah,
I do.
There you go.
Man, I love it. So yes, we are back. I am back. Florida's back. Maybe. TBD.
Till next week.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We're keeping Billy. It'll be interesting because you got Lane coming to town, right? And Lane's the one that a lot of Florida fans were lobbying for.
And by a lot of Florida fans, do you mean you?
I mean, there was a point in the season where I was on the Lane train and, Billy craps the bed a little bit more. Can I say that on the podcast? Billy doesn't perform good anymore. And I'll be right back on the Lane train, baby. But
Billy's coming back next year.
yeah, Scott already there. He'll be there, and it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I'm back, and I was back in time for Harvest Celebration, which was great.
So speaking of Billy coming through coaching, how about our people coming through for dessert?
Clutch. You guys heard the cry. That was the biggest our dessert tables looked, right? Like,
that was a massive dessert table, so much so that I heard several people say, yeah, next year we got to like divide up who's bringing desserts because everybody can't bring desserts.
absolutely not. I disagree with that entirely. I think you guys did a great job. I think we had all the dessert, which was phenomenal, and I got to try everything. I don't think there was anything I missed out on, and so I appreciate the heck out of you guys here in the call. And
all right, since we do not have like names in front of dishes at Harvest Celebration,
yeah,
I need you to give me completely unbiased opinion, the best dessert that you had.
Okay, there was. So I'll tell you what I expected it to be because I'm a sucker for that little like whipped cream Oreo crumble. You know what I mean? Like mud pie thing, whatever they call that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I love that.
I was trying to remember. I didn't have any of that, but I do remember seeing it out there.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite desserts of all time, and it was good.
I mean, it's no banana pudding, but go ahead.
Pudding. It was really good, but there was I don't know if it was a brownie type thing that had like marshmallows on top of it. To me, that was the best dessert that I had. It was 10 out of 10.
If you are listening to the podcast and that is your dessert, why don't you just go ahead and comment on the post and claim it?
I love it.
Say, hey, that was mine, and you're welcome, because I made a lot of it, AJ.
Yeah, that was.
We legitimately had people making 2 cakes instead of 1.
You love it. That is what I'm here for. I love that. That is what it's all about. And then shout out Stephanie Littleton. She brought me a little dish with my name on the tinfoil. I just said, here, make sure you get a piece of this cake. So I just love it. I think it's awesome. You guys heard the cry. You answered the call. That's what we're talking about. And I thought Harvest Celebration overall was just really good. You know, it's always good to see that.
Enjoy Harvest Celebration. You know, it really is a good time. You know, there's the little bit of stuff that we have to do on the front end, business meeting wise. You know, that's part of the church bylaws. We introduce the staff, because every year that there are people who are new from different locations who don't know, if they're not from the Lake City location, or they may not know Lucas if they're not from, the Live Oak location or whatever. And so it's good to introduce the staff. And then from there, usually we just go into, hey, let's eat, bounce houses, hay rides, bonfires, hanging out, good time. And there was all of that this year, and it was really good. And I got to say, the weather was like pretty spot on.
Beautiful.
Pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Weather was great. Not too cold.
Nope.
Not too hot.
Nope.
And the sunset.
It's gorgeous.
Was on point.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. And I made a post, AJ, I don't know if you saw it, where I was like, hey, if you're at Harvest Celebration, drop your pics in the comments. I don't ever take pictures, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of pics, that got dropped in the comments. My favorite was our host, Miss Janet, goes, I didn't get any pics, didn't take a single one. And her son, Jeffrey, goes, it's okay, Mom. It looks like everybody got your daily sunset picture for you anyway.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, it was gorgeous.
So that was pretty spot on.
It was like perfect t-shirt and jean weather. A little warm on the front end, but once the shadows started hitting, you started getting comfortable. And then when the sun went down, it was just like a nice, beautiful.
Did anybody notice the rocket launch happening?
Yeah, so we weren't sure what that was. Corey made mention of that. He's like, I think that's a rocket. And so we didn't know if it was SpaceX or...
Yeah, they were launching a satellite up into space,
Yeah.
normal thing.
Did you see it?
Totally missed that.
It was right next to Venus. It was coming up. There's Venus there, and it was coming just for me to the left of Venus. I don't know what direction that would have been.
You had
left. So when you see the Venus, hang the left.
You had like a minute window where you could actually see the rocket. I was able to see a little bit before it went.
Didn't have pictures on your camera, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you're devastated.
Yeah. I was just enjoying the moment.
Yeah, but yeah, I did see you get it.
Right. You don't live life behind a lens, Krins.
All right.
Krins.
Yins.
Lobby surf behind a lens. Deucer.
There you go. So speaking of that, it's just completely, which is what the front end's all about, whatever. When I was a kid, my mom, too, her sorority sister and her best friend, they work for NASA. I say they, her and her husband.
When they were kids, or?
No, like when I was a kid.
Oh, when you were.
Yeah. So they were
her friends from when she was a kid?
When she was, yes, a kid, her sorority sister in college, they worked at NASA. And her husband worked at NASA. They were both engineers, pretty high up there. And so every time they would do a launch out of Titusville, they would get a certain amount of tickets, and people could kind of go up there, like as close as the president was allowed to go to the rocket. And so we got invited to go one time, and I had this big old bulky camcorder. I'm like 12 or 13 years old, you know what I mean? And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And you can feel the ground shaking as the rocket starts to go up, and I'm videoing it. And then as I look like above the camera, I just am completely in awe of what's going on. And you just see like the video, like I get the first couple seconds of launch, and then it's just blue sky, and I'm locked in on the rocket because you want to see it in real life, you want to appreciate it for what it is. So that was a pretty cool, moment. It's cool memory. That is pretty cool.
I'm reminded of when Sheldon's dad drove him to see a launch in Houston. Off the show.
Yeah.
Young Sheldon.
Oh, not the Big Bang Theory.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why that made me think about that. Maybe I pictured AJ as young Sheldon. Maybe there's like something going on there.
I hope not. Hey, listen, other things that happened at Harvest Celebration, we got a little time of worship in there, and we got to take the Lord's Supper for the last time together as a church in 2024, and thought that was good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a cool way to round out that emphasis that we've had all year. You know, that we don't want this just to be something that we tack on the end of our services. We want to be significant in the way that it was intended to be significant, as a way for us to experience grace as a body of believers. And I think Harvest Celebration was the right way to do that for the last time of this year. It's been centered around nights of worship, and the Lord's Supper is a form of worship. But like we said, it's also very communal. It's about helping us look around and everybody who's with us. And the Harvest Celebration is probably the most communal event that we have as a church, where it literally is. I've joked for years about it being a family reunion, but that's literally what it is. Yeah. It is a family reunion, hang out, see everybody's kids, take pictures, and getting to do the Lord's Supper there was good. So next year, we'll be moving back to more of a normal flow where it'll be taking place at each location. But for this year, a great way to put a bow on that emphasis.
Yeah, I was looking through some social media pictures afterward, and one of the guys who goes to Lake City location who has been coming there. They just are kind of coming up on a little bit over a year now. And it was cool to see it through our people's eyes, because when he took the picture, it was outside, everybody was hanging out, and we had just done communion, we had just done worship, and other kids are playing. So you have those elements of a church service, right? And his little caption on the picture said church outside tonight. And it's just a cool, that's it is, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, we had church outside tonight, and we had these elements of a service, and we worshiped together, and we prayed together, and we took communion together. And so it's cool to see that through the eyes and the lens of somebody who hasn't been at this for a really long time.
Yeah. I'm always interested in what people think about the business meeting side of church, because that's always a weird thing for people who've never, I guess, been around that before.
Yeah.
To hear us say, all right, I need a motion. Do I have a second? All of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not anything inherent with being a church. That is part of what comes when you are an organization, so to speak, that has structures in place that limit liability and, things like that. And honestly, you don't hear this often, but every now and then you hear a story of a guy who planted a church, and one day they showed up to church and the bank accounts were empty and the preacher was gone and run off with the secretary or whatever. And that's churches that don't have any of these safeguards or organizational policies, bylaws that protect that kind of thing. And so that's not New Testament. That's just hey, this is what happens when we want to have, something like this together. But that's also why we only do business meetings, once a year.
Once a year, yeah. And we try not to hire guys that'll take all the money and run off with the secretary. Yeah, right. That's pretty good. Right. Chris, what did you think about Harvest Celebration, man? You were there, and you had the camera, and you even had some extended family there with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's always a good time.
Good.
It was, I think, my third year going.
Okay.
It's fun to hang out and have food,
Amen, brother. Amen. And then you actually ended up picking up a lost and found item this morning, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, so it was my niece's 16th birthday. It was earlier last week, but we celebrated it on Saturday. She gets a Pandora bracelet from her grandmother, my mother-in-law, and loses it the next day.
It's pain.
What's funny is Aaron was like, oh, we found this bracelet out there. And it was obviously new looking. And then it had this charm on it that said 16. And Aaron's like, I bet it was somebody's sweet 16 present or whatever. And I was like, well, who actually just turned 16, and I know she was here tonight. And sure enough, that's whose it was.
So the thought process is, should we give it back to Donna, her grandmother, for her to go get?
That'd be savage. That is a whole nother level of petty right there. The deucer is breaking out a whole nother level of petty.
Yeah. Maybe you'll take care of it better next time.
There would be some subtle anxiety involved. I feel like that's the case though with when you get new jewelry. If you're unfamiliar with jewelry or you get a new piece of it, it's awkward at first, or you're not comfortable with it, and so it is new and you're picking at it, and so I don't know.
She didn't want to get food on it.
Right.
She was eating food. She took it off.
Right.
Put it in her pocket. Fell out her pocket type thing. So I get the,
She, to me, one, she's always smiling.
Always is. Yeah, she is.
Two, she to me embodies Gen Z. She is the most Gen Z that ever Gen Z. Just from the minute I said, hey, she didn't know what to do with her hands, and she's like, hey, I'm gonna throw up a peace sign or whatever. I don't know. I love it. She's sweet, and I'm glad she found it. I'm glad it's back.
Speaking of Gen Z, I got called by a Gen Zer, maybe even Gen Alpha. Because I think I don't remember right there that cutoff. Like a middle school age that you go millennial. And I was like, what just happened? Did I just get called boomer? But it was like boomer millennial.
Millennials in.
Wow,
man, the insults, they're changing generationally. Wow, man, how was Sunday? Yeah, I know you were in Lake City and you guys had a good time. From what I heard nothing burned down. You hit all the quotas that you're supposed to meet whenever you're on stage, right? No cussing and nothing catches on fire.
Is that the quotas?
Those are my 2 requirements.
So I will say that has been AJ's quota for a long time. No, I thought Sunday was good. I enjoyed being back at Lake City. Been gone for 3 weeks, and we do video in the Vision series. It's really the only time a year that we do it. I'm trying to think. Maybe we've done it once or twice. Somebody got sick, didn't have somebody to fill in, so we pulled out every now and then. But by and large, it's the only time of the year we do that. And I dread it because of the jokes that come. And I kind of use a little bit of self-depreciating humor to get ahead of the joke, right? So, you got the 6'2" chip and the 5'9" chip, and then everybody's like, I don't know, 5'9's pretty generous. That's fun. Or the, Chris is color correcting my hair to make it look grayer than it is. And like, I don't know, it looks pretty gray right now too.
Is that true, Chris? Confirm or deny?
Not true. It's just how gray it is. Sorry, Chuck.
So it's always fun coming back to Lake City and, somebody coming up and touching you and being like, oh, it's no, but that was good to come back because this week we talked about the idea of multiplication was the big idea, but the statement was new seats for new people.
Right.
And that was inherently tied to the idea of buildings, even though it meant more than that for sure. But part of that is because we talked about some of the building issues in Lake City kind of briefly. And so that's why we picked this week to be here in Lake City to talk about those things. But anyway, it was good comeback. It was a good Sunday. We had Lucas filling in, leading worship, and everything went well.
Yeah, that's good, man. I appreciate him when he comes over and does that. We love Lucas. He's the man. So when we hit on that conversation, because I didn't get you in person. I was watching Chip virtually again. And as I was watching this...
Yeah, but if you were watching on your phone or your computer, I wasn't 6'2".
No, you weren't. You were just a little bitty guy in there.
A little guy.
But I got the gist of it. And so it to me, it really seemed like this week was all about zooming in on growing wider, right? And so, okay, what does it look like for us to really unpack as a church growing wider? And you talked about that week 1 growth deep and go wide.
Both of the last 2 weeks have really been about growing wider. And that's not because it is more important than growing deeper. Tried to make sure we knew both of those things are important, right? We want to grow deep in our spiritual formation. We want to grow wide in our impact. But we've talked a lot about spiritual formation over the last year. And we're going to keep talking about it, but I didn't feel the need to lean into that a little bit more because I felt like we've hit that, people get that. But I don't know that it's been a while since we actually talked about, but we also want to grow wide at the same time. And that's not something we're going to apologize for or shy away from. We don't think growing as a church is something that we, have to be embarrassed about. It's also not something that we sell our soul to embrace,
right.
But it's not something that we have to be embarrassed about either. I feel like there's a sentiment out there where you got ditches on both sides of the road. Some people say, oh, if the church is small, it must be an unhealthy church. And then some people say if the church is big, it must be an unhealthy church. Right. Well, neither of those things are inherently true.
Right.
And we are not going to shy away from the fact that we want our church to grow. But we will say we want our church to grow, not for the sake of our church growing, but because we want to see people come to know Jesus as Savior. And so more than we want to see our church growing, we want to see lostness impacted. And we know that one of the ways we can see our effectiveness at that closest to home is when our church grows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a huge part of it. And I've appreciated that about, as far as your tone even goes in that conversation, just saying, hey, we're going to be unapologetic about this. We want to grow wider and we want to have more reach and more impact. And I think one of the interesting things about those ditches on each sides of the road is that personally, anecdotally, I'm seeing that kind of go away with my demographic. I think that's the whole big church is bad idea, right? Like I have friends who, they don't know any better, but, well, hey, there's this Elevation church down the road. What do you think? Should I go to it? Or, they're not thinking twice about, it's a big church, I'm going to go. And so I don't think they have that stigma much like generations before them have. And so
that's interesting because I wouldn't have said that. I would have said that I think that stigma is still around. So it's interesting that you say that. I heard somebody talk about the other day that celebrity pastor culture that we have embraced in America. And they said that as long as we have celebrity pastors, we're going to keep seeing moral failings.
Sure.
And the person who was interviewing him said, whoa, that's a big statement right there. And he said, well, let me be clear. I'm not saying that every celebrity pastor is going to have a moral failing. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that as long as we have a culture that creates celebrity pastors, that culture is inherently going to draw the people into those spotlights who don't need to be there, and we're going to keep having moral failings. Right. And so, I haven't really seen that shift of people embracing the big church, but I think it's probably a healthy thing, no matter the size, to evaluate that church based on its merits, not its size.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's shocking to me is like these. You have the exception. I have the guys that I went to Christian college with, and yeah, they're going to be critical because they're just critical in general. But then you have the...
Wait, are you telling me church people can be critical?
Yeah, the most.
Chris, I've never heard this before. We might need to bookmark this in the podcast.
The most critical. And so, but you have the people, and I guess I'm largely thinking about people who are looking at church for the first time in my demographic. You know what I mean? Like they don't, and I think maybe to that celebrity pastor point, everything else they've looked at is if this guy has influence, he must be trustworthy, right? Or if this guy has a platform, he must be worth following. And so
that's wild to me, because there is nothing tied to your platform and credibility in the world that we live in today.
Yet they have it. Look at TikTok. I mean, like, so why do you have 1 million followers? I don't know, but I'm going to follow you too, because if these people are following you, I'll follow you, and it must be worth my time and my energy. And oh, look, you do post some things that are valuable to me. And I think,
yeah, like that's how come. And I don't want to be political because political season is over. So I don't want.
Yeah, man.
I don't want to be political. You guys, if you've listened to this, my feelings on all that. But for whatever reason, in my scrolling this weekend, there was a clip of Cardi B speaking at Harris Walt's campaign.
Okay.
And it was a train wreck, man. Like, it was so bad. Like, the teleprompter malfunctioned and she didn't know what to say. Like, she just locked up and she tried to say, oh, I'm just nervous. I've been waiting for this, all my life. And she couldn't even say that without, all the words being jumbled and everything.
Right.
And so it hit me. I'm like, so why are you speaking at a political rally? Like what about your ability to perform popular music equates to credibility in politics?
Right.
And that is just exponential when it comes to social media, whatever. Like you say, people assume, oh, you have a platform, you must be credible. There's nothing about platforms that are tied to credibility anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, rabbit trail, that just blows my mind.
No,
yeah, I've been thinking about lately. Like, every idiot can have a platform.
It's true, yeah.
Well, yeah, you kind of tie on that. There's a case study that talks about the first televised presidential debate and how the guy that looked better on TV, people that watched it said that he won, but the people that listened to it, the other person won because he was better spoken. But since the other candidate looked better on TV, that's who people thought won the debate.
Fascinating. Yeah, I've seen that. It's kind of like, if you're going to say something, say it with your chest, because if you sound confident, you might get away with it.
Yeah, that's right. Say everything confident, yeah. No, but I think, I'll circle back. I think that with the ditch on each side of the road, I think I am seeing that ditch less. And that's potentially not a good thing, right? But I think there's just a level of criticism that's not there with my demographic that used to be there because of the way our culture has kind of swung the pendulum as a whole. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't know. As it pertains to that, it is good because in this regard, we want to reach people and we want to be a church that's not only growing wider, but has credibility and does have a foundation we can stand on and say, hey, no, we are not just big because we're big, but we're big and we're trustworthy and we're caring for people.
Yeah, it is the credibility that I think is important for us as a church who desires to grow wider, have a regional impact. And, while that may be true that those ditches are shrinking, I do think in our part of the world, in our region here in North Central Florida, there is still a general skepticism behind things that are large, and I think that's true of churches. One of the things that we've said, is if we all of a sudden had a Pentecost movement where 2,000 people, get saved and join the church, well, then half of the people who are already here are going to leave because, now the church is too big.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think there's that inherent skepticism of things that are large like that. And so as we grow wider, that can't just be shoving people into one room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we say not just wider in size, we want to see our church grow in size, but the idea has been wider in our impact.
Yeah.
Because we want to see lostness impacted. And if they go to church at our church or another church, or if we start a new church, we're fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, we want our church to grow, but at the end of the day, we want the kingdom to grow, and we want to have the credibility in these communities that people know that the Orchard takes this seriously, but it's not all about the Orchard.
Yeah. And I would say really the as I'm listening to you speak, and as I'm on Sunday specifically, and as I'm thinking through who we are and who we want to be as a church at the Orchard, really and truly, what I'm not hearing is, well, how can we add 1,000 people tomorrow? What I'm hearing is, how can we get our people to the place where each person in our church has an impact? We will, if that happens, we will grow. And it really reminds me of what you said on Sunday when you said multiplication is God's method for his mission, right? This is what God wants. He wants the gospel to expand. He wants people to come into a relationship with him. And that doesn't happen because you threw a really cool playground together outside. No, that happens when you are impacting the people in your life who you're shoulder to shoulder with on a regular basis. And you're saying, man, I'm unashamed of the gospel, and I want you to be in on it. I want you to understand what I have going on, and our people living on mission. And so in this sermon, you hinted at multiplication being the goal. This is the goal. We want to be a church that deals with multiplication, and that doesn't just happen on accident. There's actually 3 subcategories to multiplication. And so I would love for you to kind of walk through them as we have this conversation. But the first one is subtraction. So how does subtraction play into multiplication?
All right, well, let's stop before we get into subtraction and say I made a point of this in person that I didn't make quite as definitively online, but I think it's really important, is that when I say multiplication is God's method for his mission, I'm very specific when I say his mission. We've talked about that a little bit, but I think it's something that often gets forgotten or lost. It's that this is God's mission, not ours. When we say that the church has a mission, we have a mission, that's really misspeaking in a certain way, because the mission to impact lostness, the mission to redeem and reconcile a sin-broken creation is God's mission. He initiated it. It is his heart. He is the one who is making any progress in it effective, and when you think about it like this, ever since sin entered the world, it was God's mission to redeem and restore and reconcile all that sin broke. The church didn't come into the picture till thousands of years later. So God didn't have a church and he said, well, here's something for you to do. Here's a mission. No, God had a mission, and thousands of years later, he birthed a church to partner with him in it. So it is God's mission and multiplication is the way he does that. So the 3 pieces that we talked about, right? Subtraction, division, addition. All of that is based off of Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 and God's promise to him. Now, I first saw this terminology of subtraction, division, addition from a guy named Russell Joyce, who works with the Exponential Group. And you're probably familiar with Exponential, AJ. They're big into church multiplication. And it just really made a lot of sense when he started talking about this. And you see it clearly in Abraham's life. Before you can get to multiplication, Abraham had to experience subtraction. And that was God saying in verse 1 of Genesis 12, you're going to leave your father's house, your relatives, your land. You're going to leave all of that, and I'm going to take you to a land that I'm going to show you. And so what God is telling Abraham is before you're going to multiply, you've got to subtract. You're going to lose some things. I'm going to take some things from you. I'm going to take you from some things, but not because I'm mad at you, not because they're inherently bad things, but I'm going to take those from you because I'm going to multiply you as you follow me down the road.
Yeah, there's this, and here's what's so intriguing to me about this idea of subtraction, right? There has to be a level of trust here in And this is why we want people to grow spiritually. This is why we want you to have and be a part of the spiritual formation process, because it will be easier for you to subtract if you are under the impression that what God is calling you to is better, right? If you are under the impression that God's not stupid, and the next thing that he says is, hey, this is what I want you to do. Are you willing to trust me with that? Because the subtraction, especially as I'm listening to the sermon, as you think about the concept and you think about Abram's whole situation, the subtraction is not just for him, it's for his family, right? It's for the people around him that love him. The scope of subtraction can be overwhelming sometimes, and there has to be a level of spiritual formation in your life, a level of faith where you get to the point where you say, it doesn't matter. If God's calling me to subtract here, I need to subtract here, because if I will subtract here, it will be worth it for the kingdom in the long run. And to your point, it is God's mission, and God is concerned about the kingdom, and God is calling you to be a part of the kingdom. And so it can't be AJ's kingdom, it can't be Chip's kingdom, it can't be Chris's kingdom. God's kingdom is what's at stake whenever we consider subtraction or neglecting subtraction, right?
Yeah, well, and the question that God's really asking Abraham is, all right, do you love me more than all of this? Like, are you willing to leave all this behind because you love me more? Because like you just said, AJ, it's not just that you're losing something, it's that you're gaining more of Jesus. You're pursuing him. There's no quote. I don't even know who said it, to be honest with you. But the quote goes something like, he is no fool who loses what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. You know, and I think that's the idea of subtraction. We're going to lose those things, but they're things that we couldn't keep anyway. And what we gain when we lose those things are what we're never going to lose, because they're eternal things. They're spiritual things. And so, yeah, I think you're spot on, but I think it's a good point too, that Abraham wasn't the only one who felt this.
Yeah, there's a picture that was floating around the internet for a while, and it's Caucasian Jesus with blue eyes and long hair. You know, he's on a knee, and there's a little boy in front of him. And the picture is kind of corny and maybe doesn't get the whole point across, but I think it's a good illustration. Behind Jesus's back, he's got this massive teddy bear, right? And he's reaching his hand out, and he's asking this little boy to give him this little teddy bear. And what the picture, you know, as you're kind of connecting the dots, is illustrating is if you'll...
This wants 2 teddy bears.
If you'll subtract that... I love teddy bears. Give it to me now. If you will subtract that, I've got things you couldn't imagine, right? And to your point, it wouldn't be another teddy bear, but it would be these eternally valuable things, right? But you can't see what he sees, and so your next step is a yes when it comes to subtraction.
And that's when the division aspect comes in, right? Because the subtraction is God asking Abraham, do you love me more than all of this you're leaving behind? And, you know, it's almost echoing what Jesus says to Peter, you know, on the shore after the resurrection. You know, Peter, do you love me more than these? And the idea there is he was talking about his fish. Like, Peter, are you willing to leave behind those fish to go fish after men? But then God tells Abraham, look, when you leave those, there are going to be people who bless you, and I'm going to bless those people. There's also going to be people who treat you with contempt, but I'm going to curse those people. Don't worry about it. And the question inherently in that was, do you trust me to handle it? Like, you may love me more than all this, but do you trust me enough that I've got this already figured out? You know, that's where the division comes in, because there's going to be difficulty when we seek to follow Jesus. When God uses us, when he multiplies us, there is going to be opposition. There's going to be difficulty. It's not going to all be up and to the right all the time.
So let me ask you this. Why, and I feel like this is maybe a good spot to ask it, what do you see, or what do you see being the main things that keep people right here? Like, man, I'm not willing to subtract because of XYZ, or I'm not willing to subtract because I'm not sure. What are the primary things that you've seen in pastoral ministry? Like, you've had those moments where you're like, man, I am fairly certain God is calling this person to that step of obedience, and they won't do it because of blank.
All right. So I think that what keeps people from subtracting is a couple of things. Number one, I think we have created a culture in the American church where a lot of people don't even realize that needs to happen. Okay. They just see Jesus as the next add-on, right? Like it's the new app on your phone, right? All the other apps get to stay there. You just got this new one, you know, and you're going to use it, you know, just like you use the other ones. But what the point is no, Jesus wants to subtract things from your life, maybe even good things, that compete with him for your attention and affection. And as an American church, I'm not sure that we've made that very clear, that, look, this is not a new extra thing among many things. This is the thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is that we don't let go of some of those things because we're not first willing to admit the hold that they have on our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let go of them until you acknowledge the reality of where they're at in your life and the hold that they have over you, because you're just going to downplay it. It's not a big deal. Oh, it's not a thing. But when you realize, no, this is a thing, and it's consuming my thoughts, my emotions, my finances, my energy, all of this more than I want to admit, when you get to that place and admit it, that's when you can begin to let go of it. The division where I think we get stuck there is we want to follow Jesus, but he's not told us where we're going, and if he has told us where we're going, he hadn't told us how we're going to get there. And so we're waiting until we get all of our questions answered to figure everything out before we're willing to step out and follow him and trust him, because that's the question, right? Do you trust me? I'm going to bless the people who bless you. I'm going to curse the people who curse you. I'm going to handle it. I'm not asking you to do anything except follow me. And because we want to figure it out, we're good with the what, but we're still busy trying to figure out the how, so we never leave home.
Yeah, it's really good. I think the app analogy is phenomenal, because I think I see that all the time, right? Like, how do I fit him into everything else I've got going on? And the point of the gospel is that, you don't fit Jesus into this stuff. You rip everything down and you rebuild with Jesus as the core centerpiece, the cornerstone. He's the framework. And if it doesn't fit with him, then it's out, kind of thing. And
the book I'm reading right now that may make its way to our Orchard locations is, something that you can pick up there next year. It's just very simplified, talking through some of that stuff. And I love part of how the author talks about it. He says, look, man, this is simple. We want to be with Jesus and we want to be like Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, right? Like, I want to be with him. I want to be like him. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. We got to baptize young lady this last Sunday, and through sitting and having the conversations leading up to baptism, to me, it was so clear. And I think by the end of the conversation, to her, it was so clear. I think you understand all of this conceptually. I think the next step for you is just submission to what you understand.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was just like, yeah, that's exactly it. And so I normally, we have our normal rhetoric whenever we're baptizing people. And for her, through having these conversations, I went a little further past what I'd normally say. And after I had asked her, have you trusted Jesus to be your Lord and Savior? She said yes. And then, because I was confident in her answer through conversations, I asked her, have you fully submitted to him? And she said yes. And she started to weep, because it's a big moment that changes everything in your life. It flips everything upside down on its head when you subtract the things that you love, and when you're dividing on those preferences, and you just go all in. And he's not an app on your phone, an add-on. He is everything. And so
it's the thing. And it's funny you said that, like the conversation you had, because when I was pastoring in Mayo, there was a guy who'd been coming to our church, and he always had questions. And he was close, but never made a profession of faith. And we were talking one day, and I just looked at him and I was like, man, here's the deal. Like, at this point, I'm happy to keep talking, answering whatever questions, but what you need to do to know Jesus and to trust Jesus as your Savior. And so I'm just going to give you some time. And I legitimately just got up and walked out of my office, and, he went into the sanctuary by himself and just spent some time, praying, come back, said, yep, all right, I'm in, and it's just like, there's that point where right? Like, it's surrender. It is, yeah, I'm not going to have all this figured out. I'm not going to have all of my questions answered, but that's the point. It's got to be surrender and dependency.
Yeah. There's also a level here. Here's a really easy tendency for you listening, for me, for Chip, in this conversation. I think sometimes it's real easy to identify people in our lives and it would be like, man, it would be awesome if they would just subtract. It'd be awesome if they would just surrender. And that is probably true if you're acknowledging that or seeing that, and it's probably true in their lives. But it can be really dangerous to let your mind go to somebody else immediately when there are plenty of things that you probably need to subtract yourself. So just one of the subtle dangers.
Look, I don't know that you've ever got to experience this, but I don't know how many times preaching at a more traditional church, I had people leave me like, preacher, that was a fantastic sermon. Next sentence, I wish so-and-so had been here to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, I kid you not. Like, I'm not making that up. I can't count the number of times that I've had people say that.
Yeah. It's such a danger. And I think we always want to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, right? The whole blowing granny's doors off on 90 conversation.
For somebody who has not been at the orchard, you have no idea what he meant by that. But for everybody who's been around the orchard, you get it.
You get it. Maybe worth unpacking real quick. It's the idea that when you're going down 90 and somebody drives past you going, 80 miles per hour and they blow your doors off, you're like, man, that's irresponsible. And I wish they'd get a ticket. And then the next day you're late for work and you're going down 90 and you feel justified because you're late for work and you blow granny's doors off. And it's okay for you because you had a good reason. But of course it wasn't okay for them because you didn't know their reason or it wasn't justified in your head. And so
that's right.
We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt so often. And I think what that does is it becomes a breeding ground for, well, this must be somebody else's issue, not my issue. And we never get introspective like we need to with things that we should be subtracting, or with the things that God's calling us to do, or with the things that need to be happening in our lives so that we can start division. And with division, Chip, you also mentioned kind of a little sub-layer, I think, to this in the conversation Sunday, but you said, here's the other way that we divide. We divide up so that we can multiply our impact.
Yeah, and to be really clear, this wasn't an Abraham thing. This is how I feel division as God has multiplied the orchard. And what I meant is that, we could gather together like last night for the harvest celebration. It's great when everybody's together, but then everybody gets in their car and they go different places. And I catch myself thinking sometimes, what would it be like if this was every Sunday? Like if everybody was together, if all the bands were together, if all our pastors were together, if all our staff was together, how incredible could we do church?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm reminded that we have divided up so that we can have a bigger impact, so that we can influence more people, that there are people who have come to trust Jesus as their Savior that would not have if we were all together in one big building somewhere in Lake City.
Yeah.
And so I feel that division, but I also see that it's led to multiplication.
Yeah.
Just like the subtraction, you feel it when we launch new locations and we send people out. You feel it when you've been in a small group for years and now that small group divides up, splits up to go launch another one. You feel the subtraction, you feel the division. And what you have to be reminded of is it's just part of the journey toward multiplication.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. And so you get these two first elements, right? We subtract, we divide, and then now we have to add. And here's the tension for this, all of this is not a church by church decision, right? This more so, it is the members of the church that have to make these decisions in their daily lives to get to this point. And so this is why spiritual formation is such an important piece of the process. But we tell people we got to subtract, we got to divide, and then this is where we're going to see some addition. So maybe talk about addition for a second.
Well, I said Sunday in Lake City, and I mean it, that I'm not a big math guy. I don't like doing math. That's just new to me, right? Like I'm not a math guy. I figure when I got to college that the math class that I took, I chose the lowest level math class they offered at my college. I figured the most I was going to do with math in my career as a pastor was the book of Numbers. And that's where I was at. And as far as I understand it, and if for some reason we have a math professor as one of our dozens of listeners, feel free to let me know. But in my understanding,
don't.
Yeah, or don't. For my understanding, multiplication is just fancy addition.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, it's like you're adding the same thing
on a larger scale,
on a bigger scale. It's fancy addition, right? And so addition is the building blocks of multiplication.
Multiplication is just fancy addition. I'm not picking on Taylor County, right? But I feel like that's straight out of the Taylor County college algebra class. All
right, look at me. So if we baptize 3 people in Lake City, and we baptize 3 people in Live Oak, and we baptized 3 people in Brantford, and we baptized how many people?
That's 9.
9 people, right? So then was it 3 times 3 or 3 plus 3 plus 3?
It is both.
Yeah, because multiplication is fancy addition.
Yeah, so I'm not disagreeing with the premise. I think it's there. I'm just saying that sounds That's great. All right, carry on.
So really, really here is the point that after God was like, Abraham, do you love me? Do you trust me? The question is, are you going to obey me? And Abraham got up in verse 4 and went. And if he hadn't, you got to think, no, the rest of it would have mattered, that he had to get up and go. But it's not just that, he had to keep going, step by step, day by day, time after time, choice after choice. And so what we're saying is that we reach multiplication, not instantly, not in one choice. It doesn't happen all at the same time. We reach the level of multiplication, as you said, AJ, by a bunch of people or a bunch of locations choosing to add that next step of obedience. It's step by step, time over time. That's where multiplication comes in.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you rounded that out with, this is why we want new seats for new people. And you had a statistic in there that said if there was only, or right now, there is only one church for every 800 people in our region, which is, when you think about the churches that are already in our region, in ourselves included, like, what kind of infrastructure do you have right now? If God said, I'm going to bless your ministry, or I'm going to let these people start taking their next steps, and your people are going to start being obedient to me, what does that look like for us tomorrow? Can we handle that? Are we in a position where we're ready? And I think it's a sobering thought. And I say we, not just we, the Orchard, but we are our communities, our churches, the people who already are pastoring around here. What does that look like? And are we ready for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the new seats for new people, man, it does mean that we need new seats. And we talked about this Sunday. We talked about it at Harvest Celebration. In the next couple of years, we're going to have to build some buildings at the Orchard. We're going to have to expand some buildings at the Orchard because we're getting full. And like I told people in Lake City on Sunday, it's like, look, man, like, church people aren't going to fight over a seat to come to church. Much less people who don't come to church in the first place. People who don't come to church aren't going to fight people for a seat at church. You know, if I have to say, hey, could you scooch over a smidge? I'm just not coming, you know? And so we do need new seats. But the bigger idea wasn't like new seats, pews, whatever. It is those new seats. That's just symbolic, tangible language we can picture in our head for there have to be new opportunities for new people to be able to be connected, right? Like, new people connect with new things, with new possibilities, with new opportunities. So just like if somebody's going to come to our church, there has to be a seat available for them. If they're going to come to our church, there has to be a place available for them to get plugged in, to get connected. There has to be a group of people that they can build a relationship with. There needs to be a place that they can serve. There needs to be a place where they can feel seen and known. And so really that's the bigger sense of what we mean when we say new seats for new people.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think it's been a good, and I said this from stage, not rah-rah, not championing something new, but I think it's been incredibly clear from you throughout the Vision series. And that's what the biggest piece of this was the clarity. And the clarity is here. We know what our next steps are, so let's start taking them. So I think that's been incredibly helpful for our church.
Yeah, and I want to say this because I've said it, but I want to keep saying it because I didn't think about it in this way until I said it on stage for the first time. And the truth is that regularly, not every day, not every week, but regularly, I get phone calls from churches who need help, from pastors who are stuck, from people who are saying, look, we want somebody to come do something in our community. And they ask, can the Orchard help? And the reality of the situation is I can't say yes every time.
Right.
I want to. AJ, you know me. Like I want to. I'll take every opportunity we can, but we just can't because there's still things that we've got to fix here and things that we got to work on here, things that we got to solidify here. And so when I say it's time for the Orchard to grow up, which has kind of been the message in this Vision series, what I mean is it's time for us to step in maturity. Let's get our house in order. Let's get everybody on the same page. Let's toe the line. And the next time that phone rings, let's make sure that we can start with yes, no matter what the ask is.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's time for the Orchard to grow up. Not because we've done anything wrong, done anything bad, but I believe that God is opening a door in North Central Florida for us to lead the charge into a field that is ripe for the harvest. And for us to do that, if we're going to lead the charge, well, we better make sure that we're ready for what comes with that. And we better make sure that our house is in order. And that's the idea that I want us to lean into in this season, because the truth of the matter is that every single attender at the Orchard plays a part of that.
Yeah.
And in January, when we're going to start talking about Impact Tomorrow, this initiative that we're rolling out, we are going to outline for you steps that you can take to help us pull this off as a church, to make this a reality. Because whether you are a student listening to this, whether you've been coming to the Orchard from the Holiday Inn listening to this, or maybe you've just been visiting and you're trying to check it out, you are going to be a piece of what we do that's really going to impact tomorrow in North Central Florida. And the choices you make multiplied across locations are what's really going to make that difference.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So Vision Series is rounding out officially. That's what's coming in January. We're going to unpack some of that. What does this next month look like? What does December look like?
Sheer chaos. That's what the December looks
chaos.
like. So new series that we're going to be starting in December, not next week, because I'll let you talk about what we're doing next week. But in December, we're going to be launching a new series called Coloring Book Christmas, where we're going to be looking at a lot of those key foundational elements of the Christmas story that maybe we haven't looked at close enough, and going to lean into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Also in December, we are jingle jamming all over the place.
Boy, are we.
It is, look, if you've been at the Orchard before and you've been to a jingle jam, you don't even know what we're about to do, because we are about to blow the doors off of Branford High School, Swanee High School, and Richardson 6th Grade Academy here in Lake City. And it's going to be absolutely incredible. These are going to be events open to the entire community. We are just now starting to slowly get the word out and announce it and have Facebook events created and all this stuff. But it's just going to be a snowball, no pun intended, rolling downhill that is going to be gathering speed and momentum till you're seeing promotional videos and flyers. And we want to take these counties by storm and say, look, you want to do something for Christmas for your kids? You want to go to a Christmas show? You ain't got to drive to Gainesville. You ain't got to drive to Jacksonville. You ain't got to drive to Tallahassee. You just stay home, and we're going to do Christmas for you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be incredible.
Which is cool, because I just saw, we had a guy, I don't know him, but he grew up in Lake City, and he just did a free concert for the community in Lake City. And when I was looking through those...
You mean the barbecue showdown thing?
I don't know. But I was looking through the comments, and the comments I was seeing was, this is so awesome. There's never anything like this for people in Lake City. There's never any free events like that. And so when I saw that, I mean, this is that. This is us saying, we want something for you. We don't want something from you. Come have a good time. Come bring your family. Come hang out. And we want you to enjoy this. We want you to have an event that you can go to in town, in Live Oak, in Lake City, in Branford, that you guys can enjoy and appreciate.
And look, when I say that we're pulling out all the stops, not going to just say a whole lot else. And to be fair, I'm not Mr. Certainty. So as long as I'm, 51% certain, I'm going to be very clear. But I'm more than 51% certain about this. I would just say there may be snow in the forecast on the dates of Jingle Jam.
There we go. I love it.
Just throwing that out there.
All right, a little teaser. That's good. That's good. And then that's December. Yeah, we'll talk about Impact Sunday real quick for Lake City, Live Oak, and Branford. Man, I know that you're going to be seeing a lot of this in your group pages. The day this probably drops, that we'll have some information for what we're doing in Lake City, Live Oak, and Branford. Have a lot of that going on. And this is just going to be a cool Sunday, again, where we say, we want something for you, not from you. And we're going to go out into the community. We're going to love our community. We're going to do something for our community. And we're going to start making some steps toward impacting lostness. Now, we may not see 800 people saved on this Sunday, but I think these are little baby steps that are going to happen Sunday that start to move the needle on impacting lostness and start to let the community know, man, we really are for you guys and we want something for you. And so I'm excited about this. I think it'll be really good. I'm excited to see our people in action. People are saying there might be a little surprise for you there Sunday morning as well at your location.
That's what people are saying.
That's what people are saying. I don't know who people are. That's what people are saying. So anything, Chris, you want to add to this conversation today?
No.
All right.
What was your favorite dessert at Harvest Celebration?
I'm not a big dessert guy, but the one AJ did speak about, the brownie with the marshmallows on top, was really good.
Electric. What was yours? I didn't ask you. What was your favorite dessert?
I didn't get to eat a whole lot of dessert.
No?
No, I was bouncing around.
What'd you think of the cupcake, though?
I was going to say, Chris and Jules brought a banana pudding cupcake, and it was surprisingly light and fluffy, and had enough flavor to it. I was here for it. I like it.
I like it.
However, we almost messed up because we are 55 minutes into this podcast, and we've only once acknowledged that it's episode 49.
Yes.
Oh,
Giveaway coming.
Last week, this is your last chance to get those entries in.
Yes.
So if you want to enter for a $50 gift card, then you need to do a couple of things. Number one, you need to go to Apple Podcast and write a review of the podcast. Number two, you need to like, comment on, and share the social media post for this podcast. Now, each of those, a like, a comment, a share, that's going to earn you a like. And because
you an entry.
that's what I meant and not what I said. It's going to earn you an entry into the drawing. And because we like you, see, that's where I was going.
There it is.
I'm going to tell you to go back and do that on the last two episodes, too.
Yeah, why not?
Episode 48 and 47,
Yeah.
right? So that's 3 entries for 47, 3 entries for 48. You can get 3 entries on 49. You leave a review, that's 10. And Mr. Cody Gamble gets the option for an 11th because he accurately guessed where you were at. And by guessed where you were at, I mean, told everybody where you were at since you already knew.
Trey said insider info.
Yeah, insider trading here.
Yeah.
But that's 11 entries for Cody, 10 entries for everybody else. And
Which is the most Cody thing ever. You know Cody, that shouldn't surprise you. Guy just,
does Cody even listen to the podcast?
I have no idea. Sure, that's not true. Let me say this. Cody listens pretty religiously every single week on his drive to Lake City.
Does he really?
Him and his coworker do, yes.
I was going to say that nobody can say a word to Cody about this until just to see if he ever hears it. But get your entries in because next week we are going to announce the winner.
I love it.
Electric.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
We're announcing the winner next week. You will know on episode 50 if you won or if you lost.
That is correct.
So by the time you hear the next episode, it will be too late and you will have fumbled the bag.
That is what the kids are saying.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Just want to be clear.
All right. So that's it. And I guess next time we'll see you. It'll be episode 50.
Or hear you, because it's a good thing they can't see us. That's probably why we're so credible. You know, if we were on video, this would probably be not as good, according to Chris's study.
Well, touche.
Yeah. All right. See you next week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow in this journey of faith and embrace community. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website and stay connected. Your questions are what make this podcast a dynamic and enriching experience. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who may find value in these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you and will help you bring Sunday's message into your week ahead. Keep the conversation alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.